Welcome back to the channel, everybody. In this video, let's go back to basics. So let's lay out this back wall. We're gonna get into some blueprint reading. We're gonna frame the wall, cut headers, cut king stud trimmers. How do we figure out the cripple heights for the windows? And then in part 2, we'll actually sheet the wall, build the soffits, and hang the windows. So let's get into it. Okay, so this plate bows down, that plate bows up. So that means when we nail them smooth, they're gonna be the same. They're gonna straighten themselves out. This is a rake wall. I'm gonna have to re-snap part of it, but here it is. Okay, so what we always do is we scribe to all the lines that we snapped because we made those perfect. If these plates match all of our lines, then all we're doing is extruding the blueprint in full size. Everything is flat and matches all of our lines. If it's true at the bottom, it'll be true at the top. All we're gonna do is add stud heights. All right. Okay, I want a side elevation. Come on, Timmy. Murphy's Law, it's gonna be the very last plan that I look at. Okay, so I want that guy. And here's the roof plan. Let's lay out these plates. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna lay out this wall. We're gonna lay it out so that it butts the side wall. So here's some basic layout. If at all possible, orient your plans the same direction as the house itself. So if you could see from the drone's eye view, this is what the house looks like as we're here. So that's my top right corner of the house, top right corner of the house. That right-hand side wall is this guy. So we're gonna lay out this wall, butting this corner. Then next week, we're gonna frame the big rake wall. So here's how that works. I'm 2 stories high back to here. I pitch up and I pitch. And we're gonna get into this in a whole separate video. That just helps you visualize like this. It tilts up. So this here is this wall. Now, I wanna know my roof plan. Again, I wanna orient it the way that I'm actually currently viewing it. So this wall is what we're gonna lay out. This is my big rake wall. Because of this roof, from this ridge, the rafters come all the way down through the second floor wall to here. And then from here all the way over, there's gonna be a glulam beam. So all my rafters land here, they land in that line. Then this ridge lands onto the garage. This ridge lands onto the garage. Okay? So I wanted to know this because I need to know what's directly above the wall that I'm going to lay out. So if I fold this, here's what that looks like. So this here, that's the same as this, all the way across. So I have a glue lamp, but instead of stopping it here, I run it all the way through because there's no other way really for me to land the rafters. This here is gonna be overframed. That'll make sense as we get to future videos. What we need to know for this video is I have a bearing point right here for that glue lamp and just my rafters. 2 foot on center, my wall's 2 foot on center, my floor below is 2 foot on center. Okay? I always lay out windows first because there's no marks. So I'm 9 foot 9 3/4 outside of building to center. So what I'm gonna do is this. Lock the tape, 9 foot 9 3/4. Outside of building, so I'm going to burn 5 1/2. I can walk on the plans because they're laminated. 9 foot 9 3/4. So 9 foot 9 3/4. that is the center of the two windows. So here's how we're going to do that. I'm going to run one king stud, so 3/4 each way. So that's a king stud. I'm going to add a trimmer on each side. It's a king stud, trimmer, trimmer. My windows, 4060s, 4 foot wide, 6 foot tall. I only need single trimmers because it's just a roof load and our plans did not show any point loads or extra framing. Mark it, 4060, 4060. Would help if I did that. Now this side, I'm gonna do exactly the same. 4 foot wide from the trimmer. So one trimmer and then a king stud. King stud is an X, trimmer is a T. Some people call them jack studs. We've always called them trimmers. It's the way I was taught. 4060, 4060. Okay, now you'll remember from a previous video, the center of our joist is at that seam. Let's see if we can see it. Okay, notice how we stack. Notice also my king stud trimmer I laid out down here, so that has support all the way down to the mud cell. So I can cheat because I know I laid out the center of my seam for that. But instead, what I'm going to do is, since my layout starts from the outside of the building, and this corner goes that way, this corner goes that way, that's my reference point, 5.5, I'm gonna mark center of my stud. Now I can put my tape away and I can use my layout stick. You want to stay to the same side. So I'm on the right-hand side, right-hand side, right-hand side. Now I'm going to switch so that I can see it better. I'm on my left-hand side, left-hand side. Oh, that's right on my stud, but I need it. So I'm going to add a stud. Notice that this is directly over our seam, which is directly over the joist. Okay, now because that guy's a little funky, I'm going to use this. That end was right on layout. I'm on the outside because I'm on the outside. So shifting to my left. This goes really fast. Okay, now I don't normally put a little cripple stud here, but I'm going to because that's layout. And I'll explain that in the future. Okay, 2 foot. Now I have a stud on layout, and each of these studs is also a joist below and a rafter above. So what I'm going to do is I have a 6x6 right here, and then I'll end up with a stud there. 6x6, 6x6. These are still exactly where we started. Okay, let's see how much accumulated error we have. What I'm going to do is just hook and slide it out 5.5 inches. Remember, our reference is the outside of the building. Hey, look at that. 5.5. I know my first one's good, right? Because we measured that one, and then we went layout stick off of it. 16 foot, so 4 sheets over. I am 3/16. Do I care? No. Here's why. It's one wall. We're supposed to gap our sheeting anyway, so that means I can gap a 16th. It's okay that my layout grew just a little bit. It's probably less. In fact, let's check it. It's probably less than an 8. It's probably more like a 16. Yeah, see, that one's just maybe a 32nd over, maybe a 16th. So if I had to do this 100 feet, what I would do is I would give myself a couple of control points and then use my layout stick. Okay, now when we lay these out, I have a king stud trimmer. I also do down here. Our load path is continuous. Trimmer, king stud trimmer, all the way down. By the way, I mismarked this. That's a cripple. King stud trimmer, all all the way down. Load path is continuous. Now that we know that our layout is good, and it doesn't matter, I'm gonna have to move all my plates. My top plate and double top plate are gonna go up there, and this guy's gonna end up getting nailed to the line. So here's how I'm gonna cut those. All right, here's how we're gonna cheat this. Cut it with a beam saw, baby. Clean up as you go. Okay, right on the black line. And right on my black line. Now you might be asking yourself, how come I didn't hold this back to continue with, so that this plate can overlap? We don't overlap our top plates, we strap them. We have to strap them at rake walls anyway. We have to strap our floors together where the engineer tells us. It is plenty strong. So what I'm gonna end up doing is strapping the top, and I'm gonna have a strap that nails to my plate from the top and up to the beam from the bottom. Continuous load path all the way across, laterally and then vertically. Okay, so here's a look at that wall and how things stack. My little pony wall cripple stud. Here's my joist, there's my stud. So straight line, king stud trimmer, straight line through, trimmer, king, trimmer, same thing. And of course, you guessed it. Layout matches joist, which matches stud, joist, stud, stud, joist, stud, etc. 6x6, that's a point load. I have blocking behind here to transfer that. That's a full corner all the way down. For headers, our engineer has sized 1¾ by 9¼ LVL. It's a single ply. The reason that we do that is so that more insulation can go between the drywall and the header. One of the advantages is it tends to be much more uniform, although no offense LP, these were a little cupped and not quite as consistent as I would have liked. But even so, I'm not going to complain. What's the point of complaining? Now that we've taken out the depth of our header out of our standard height stud, that's these 4 trimmers here, now I need to lay out for my window in order to figure out my cripple stud height. My window is 6 foot tall, so I always mark 6 foot. I know I have 1 window sill, so I mark that, and then I'm going to nail another sill under the header. So 1 under the header, 4 feet away from, or 6 feet away from that is my second sill. So to make the math easy, I mark 6 foot always. I mark both sills, otherwise I'm likely to forget one of these. Here is our cripple stud height, 19 and 13/16. Okay, let's go ahead and build our king stud trimmers. So what we're gonna do is we're first gonna crown and check for barked edges. The crown is either up or it's down along this edge. That actually looks nice and straight. Then I'm gonna oppose the crown with the trimmers. These both look nice and straight. This is much easier to do at waist height. Now it's just a matter of keeping track of it all. And you want to visualize the drywall side. So I'm flush here on the drywall side. Now with my right hand I can maneuver and I can pull if there is a crown. I can use leverage to pull that out. And then once I get about halfway I check. Stack it out of my way. Here's my second combo. I angle my nails in case it's summertime. When it gets hot, sometimes it'll twist off the studs. You can just pull the nails, put a gap in them. Okay, so that's my outside king stud trimmers. Again, I'm looking for a crown. Man, those look good. This one's a little different. It's my king stud that's in the middle of the 2 walls. So it means it's a king stud with a trimmer on each side. If you angle your nails, it can keep the material from pulling apart in the summertime when it gets hot. But it also doesn't poke through the other side. Everybody learns that one the hard way. When they have a nice brand new sweatshirt and then they walk between the studs and a wall and they tear their clothes. Okay, so that one has a crown down. This is my drywall side. So I'm going to crown it down because everything else crowns up. Try to pull that crown out as we go. So nice and smooth. I don't have to angle these ones quite as much because they're just going to grab the other 2x6 underneath. Okay, so what we're looking for this guy is crowned that way. What that means is across the 5.5-inch face, it bows that way. If you can see that. So now it's bowing down, which means that it's going to want to rock and roll. We just make sure everything's crowned the same way. Now that we're ready to frame the wall, my preference is to start with the windows. Yeah, see, I didn't edit that out. Just keeping it real, people, just keeping it real.
Exactly, only when the camera's on.
See how these guys stick up a little? That's okay, that's gonna hide on the outside. They're nice and flush down at the bottom.
I like to mark the trimmer on each end. Depending on how far the cripples are away, that helps me to keep the sill nice and straight across. Now, you might be wondering, why am I not using those little cripple studs? They don't offer any benefit structurally. Remember, we're gonna fully sheathe these walls. And so we leave that out for insulation purposes. Now, the model codes, the 2018 International Residential Code does not show them. Notice too, I like to get the sills framed before I put headers in, because if I need to, I can kind of yank them over and tighten up that sill. On this side, however, I had to nail the cripple to the trimmer because that's where layout landed. When it comes time for the sill, just take the sill, put it in place, and mark the stud layout. Nice and easy. Keeps everything nice and parallel. That is the sound of my wine glass, which has some bourbon barrel-aged Cabernet Sauvignon. Quite good. I was taught to lay out studs with center marks. So as you can see, I just go through and I eyeball it. Notice that my left hand is about 8 inches back. And with that max high pressure gun, when you pull the trigger once, it only shoots one nail. Then I have to hold the trigger down in order to bounce fire. So that way I never shoot myself. I have not shot myself in the hand since 1998. Although one time I did have a nail curl stuck into my hand and I bled all over the brand new nail gun. That really bugged the guys. I'm not kidding. That was like 2004. That old DeWalt. So that guaranteed that I was the only one that used that old DeWalt nail gun. Good times. We want our framing to be as smooth or flush as possible. So I tend to step on things down to the floor, and that way it's nice and flat on the drywall side. When it comes to my double top plate, I'm gonna nail it at the end flush. Then I'm gonna make sure that I nail it only over studs or framing members. That will leave the bays open for plumbing, HVAC, electrical, whatever. Now notice there, I jumped ahead about 4 feet, and then I go back and I nail it at the headers. That's just so that I can make those plates smooth. Sometimes you have to do it, sometimes you don't. That's why I use the hammer with my right hand and the nail gun with my left, even though I'm right-handed, is I can use the forks of the hammer to pry things up as needed.
All right, 22 foot, 7/16. 22 foot, 7/16.
Here is the principle of squaring a wall. So I'm gonna sheet that wall before I lift it. Remember that my top and bottom plates are identical. all of my stud lengths are identical. So now if my diagonals are identical, now I have the definition for a rectangle. 2 sets of parallel lines and all of my angles are 90 degrees. Because the floor is level, 90 degrees to level is plumb. So there's the principle. It's also really easy to do it this way instead of off ladders.
Oh man, 22 foot 1/2. So let's figure out our sheeting. If I go with 8 foot sheets from the very top, if I go 8 foot, I have, let's call that 27, which means my lower sheets are somewhere around 40 and a half. Okay, here is how you production cut blocking. Grab your scrap. We have this scrap left over from our rake wall. I'm gonna align, since I'm right-handed, I'm gonna align this on my left. Now I don't have to mark this. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna line up this tick mark with this edge, okay? And then all I'm gonna do is plunge. So that edge, keep it parallel, keep your base plate parallel, and line up that edge, which is your blade, with the edge of the stud. Okay, so here's how this goes in real time. Start over just for you peeps. If you angle it, you can just butt it. I'm gonna come in here. Ah! Next one, butt it. Boom. You want them to be just a little short. That way it doesn't move your studs off layout. Boom. You just work your way down, no measurement. Easy peasy. Also, you definitely want a saw that does that. I'm really digging this guy. This might be my favorite saw I've ever used. Good job. Whoever you are, good job.
And that is the end of part 1. In part 2, as you can see, we're gonna sheet the wall, build soffits, we're gonna hang the windows and flash them. So stay tuned for part 2. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, ask me below. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video.